a catch up / watch up / chat about Legendary Lives. Thanks everyone for playing with me. It was great. What would people like to talk about?
Robbie already started the storm.
Yes, so there's a load of interesting discussion happening.
Well, hold on. Weren't we going to have a denouement?
Oh.
To the actual.
Oh yeah, probably we were. I wrote something down.
No. If not, then not, I guess. But
no dice, I hope. I'm in trouble.
No. I think
we're in trouble. We can demonstrate our concerns with the dice by seeing what happens, in our denouement.
Yeah.
I believe
roll fate to see if you die.
I was going to say, and then we all died in the prison, 4 years ago.
I believe we were all going to think about what might happen down the line to our lovely characters, freed from the torment of dice, making them not be able to do things they wanted to do. I should have put more thought into that bit. I've forgotten about it. But yes, so.
Well, if we don't have to roll dice, then I will nominate myself the Supreme Chancellor of Cat Well-Being for the Elven Empire.
Seems legit.
No.
I figure.
All of this just to become a cat lady.
Well, the whole thing with the cats and animals sort of came out of the character sheet, but also that sort of, if I didn't have that agoraphobia, it would have been horses, right? I just don't. That's where I was thinking anyway. Riding horses through the wide open field, but now can't do that anymore. So what's the next best thing? I don't know. Bottom line, I really don't like that agoraphobia result. I should have taken it anyway.
I think I can see why one wouldn't, because we were all kind of hyped on the roll it and like it aspect of character creation, in the sense that, well, if we rolled it, let's see it. Let's trust this thing and run with it. But I will say that I agree with you that phobias, and they're all over role-playing too, right? I mean, they're role-playing, like in that one seminar I did about insanity rules. It's just appalling. I mean, it's easier to list the games that don't have characters that are out of control than the ones that do.
Right.
And so I guess we're kind of used to it, and in a lot of games it's really functional, but I'm thinking especially of Call of Cthulhu, you don't start with a phobia. It's just one of the possible results you might end up with.
Right.
And the question is it ever really fun?
Yeah.
The trouble with the classic phobias is that we're used to them being played for comedy too.
Right.
I mean, fear of heights, ever since, high anxiety, since when has fear of heights been anything except funny?
Right.
It's kind of hard to take your character seriously when you're given a fear, which I associate with Mel Brooks or anything like it.
Yeah, I guess where I feel like to make it functional, you would need to kind of excavate, like, people, I think, typically don't just develop random phobias. There usually has been a triggering, there was some type of, traumatic triggering event, in the background that then, spawned the phobia. As I recall, like in Call of Cthulhu, I mean, it's somewhat random what phobia you get,
exactly.
isn't it?
That's why I was talking about
right.
it as an example.
Right.
Fun.
Yeah.
Whereas the specific experience, I could see that. But,
right.
And then you would have that experience to work with, right? That you could.
Another aspect of it has to do with the developmental quality of all of those traits. I mean, it's a given that those things are starting points. Given the character goals in particular, I'm talking about in Legendary Lives. Given the character goals in particular, it's not surprising to think of the stuff on your sheet as being, subject to change. And I went ahead and did that with the traits that Shining Star had. But on the other hand, I did leave them to a miracle roll. I was still uncertain enough about just saying, oh, well, she combs her hair.
Right.
And I guess conceivably you could have done the same with Christabel.
Right.
Because you did have something in your backstory about her being imprisoned, right? And that's where the agoraphobia came from?
Yeah, or, well,
like
fleeing
Chased
from
across
pursuers.
deserts, things like that, and exposure.
But the idea being that there was sort of a, maybe perhaps warned in, but there was something. And
yeah, no, I mean, you're right.
Well,
and I think at some point it crossed my mind, but then, events just didn't move.
I'd looked up various herbs in the game list of huge herbs can be used to cure phobias. And so I had prepared to sprinkle them liberally across as things you could find. For example, in the desert islands that you decided to explore.
I don't think you were prepared for us to just not be excited at all about the island.
Well, I
would have.
I don't mind.
On it, but.
I was in the scale of all the things I prepped that never got used. Thought about prepping that vaguely got written up and never got used. It's not huge on the list of things. There's like that was the real problem I had. I've started putting together a video talking about prepping for it, but I had lots of stuff that I felt I needed to have in my back pocket in order to. You could go anywhere, and I drew a nice little map of all the directions you could leave out of Smith City, for example, with at least vague ideas of what you would find in all different directions, and you immediately chose the one I thought you wouldn't go for, and therefore hadn't done much prep. Up to including not having thought of any ships you could get on and things like that. So when I hesitate to raise the word sandbox as a
that actually does lead to an important point, because in play of the kind we're talking about, the availability of something is a highly subjective variable. What seems highly available to one person isn't. I mean, it's like that seminar that I did called Roll to Know. When do characters know, and when do players know that their characters know it? And when do players know it or their characters don't? I mean, what is this actually in terms of decisions of play? And it is kind of interesting. So I'm not talking in any way about what you should have done, of course. I'm talking about the fact that do we or don't we, how are we looking at these traits on our sheets? Are we looking at these traits on our sheets as something that we address? So if Rod said, I'm going to address the agoraphobia, how do I deal with agoraphobia? And I'm not saying you should have, but I'm saying that the question is, knowing that you can is sort of part of the picture of play. And it's not really obvious. I mean, there's nothing in that book about character development that you would actually do that. And I really don't want anyone ever to be in the position of the students in some of my colleagues' classes where they would just simply not understand how to address a question on the test, and the prof would smirk and say, well, I said that at, if you look at the recording, I said that at 10:34 on the lecture on Thursday the 24th.
Right.
And I mean, it's terrible. I mean, you can't force people to do breadcrumbs, right? And I'm not saying that's what you did, Ross. I'm saying that we're talking about the way information and play works. So
yes, absolutely.
Do we know that we look at our sheet and say, what about myself do I want to change?
Right.
Is that a piece of play? I think the mechanics.
And then there's
there's the mechanics for it are there. I mean, it's there in the herbs, right? It's sitting right there. But the degree of system knowledge, addressing it on the sheet, and then coupling that with prep, the fact that you can look for anything you want in the right terrain.
Right.
All of those should kind of go together into a functional dynamic. Right?
Probably something was missing, and
but how do we?
Probably my thought is that how do we get from playing moment to moment to moment, which clearly was a problem that we kind of had we'll just roll along.
I'm not sure
I
I'm even
wasn't
going to
forcing
assign it
to-
as that. I'm not sure we've even like diagnosed a problem. Really.
Okay, but
I'm not gonna go that far.
we did an awful lot of playing moment to moment to moment, which meant we got through 18 sessions and covered about 5 days worth of actual time of people's lives, with a big gap in the middle, but basically a couple of days and then a couple more days.
Yeah.
So I played through a couple of days of actual, moment to moment of the characters do this and they do that and then they do that and then. I forgot where I was going now. Yes, without working out a good way for at a slightly higher level above that for you as the players to communicate what I'd like for my character to be able to do next and the directions I'd like to take are beyond. At this particular moment of crisis, I'm going to run this way or talk to this person, but not having a way we can communicate. So you can say, well, what I'd really like to do is address this favour and get rid of it, or go and open a pet shop.
Right.
Without any sort of, and therefore, as the GM, be able to prep and say, well, in order to open a pet shop, they need to do A, B, and C, and therefore
We've kind of got that with the goals, and that's why I'm kind of focusing less on the prep than about a more generalized understanding among all of us that you could even put on your sheet, overcome my agoraphobia.
Right.
But what's the fun of overcoming it if you haven't played it?
Right.
So how are we going to play it first? And if I'm not really feeling it to play it in the first place, because I even think we had to remind you that you had it for us to see it.
Yeah.
Right. So in a way, it threw you a loop and then went away weirdly. Right. So the point is that I'm not talking about who did what wrong. I'm talking about some kind of interesting stuff on the sheet, how characters change, what's available in play, how's it known to different people that it's in play. All those pieces are kind of there in the game, but they are really, really textually disconnected.
How things aren't pulled together in a way that makes this look like a thing you can focus on. Almost
maybe.
like
there isn't a good diagram. That's what the diagram in Sorcerer is for. But Sorcerer is a pretty heavy, a hard-hitting instrument toward that purpose. I'm not sure that Legendary Lives, has to be that.
But it does have that Dungeons and Dragons character sheet feature of there's all this stuff on the front which you use all the time and stuff on the back that you never look at, which is perhaps
true. Robbie, you were talking about, given the swerves, as you called it, which I thought was a great term, actually. Given the swerves, that you felt like it interfered with things, or you were saying it could interfere with things, but what you were saying it interfered with, I thought was the most horrifying thing ever. Which was planning for how things were going to turn out, planning for a destination. And also weaving everything together, and also including everybody else. And I was kind of like, God, did he just put 3 things I hate all in one place? Because it's the swerves in this case are really different. Because, I like systems where you have to take it and like it. If you look at any of my designs, you're not going to see takebacks on the systemic material, the mechanics. You're not going to see consensus. You're not going to see any of that stuff. My games are very much about take it and like it. Even Troll Babe, if you drive through the rerolls, you are taking consequences as you go. And so it's really out of character for me to look at a system and say, wow, isn't this a little too random? Or isn't this a little too, a little too bouncy? Isn't this a little too, stalling out or stopping me or something from getting what I want? Whereas my typical designs and preferences are all about, you can't always get what you want.